What is up, everybody? Patio Slay Podcast, episode 89, coming at you right now. My name is Tony. I am joined by Anthony and Nate. How you doing, guys?
Oh, man. Best day of the week. Nerd session, nerds at the bar, digitally. Stoked, man. Tonight was a blast as usual, but we had a special guest today, so I was very excited.
Yeah, man, I'm good. I just had a big urge to chat with you guys this week. And
Big urge. Yeah.
Big urge. Yeah. And Nate, you say best day of the week every week. I agree. Who do we got, Nate? What's going on this week?
Yeah, Nate, why don't you jump right in and tell us?
Jump right in. Well, I'm going to give you the receiving gift of the flavor. That is The Urge and Steve Ewing, singer since 1987 to present, joined us tonight. I got to say, one of my favorite bands, hands down. Love this band. Love their sound. Love the hybrid of different genres that they bring to the table. His voice, I think we all agree, is one of a kind. Just so unique. And to get him on the pod tonight was just icing on the cake, because not only is he super nice, not only is the music amazing, but he just gave us so much insight, so much backstory on questions that we've been thinking about forever, 20 plus years at least. So yeah, it was an absolute blast. And we're going to get into it right now with Steve Ewing from The Urge.
Hey guys, it's Tony. If you like what you hear, go back and check out some of our other interviews. We've had Scott Russo of Unwritten Law. We've had Greg Bergdorf on with us 4 times of Zebrahead fame. Frank Turner, he's a singer-songwriter. We've had Peanut from 311, which we get into a little bit of 311 love with Steve tonight on the episode. So, hey, if you like that stuff, you like any of our other interviews, go back and rate, like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks.
My mind it draws a blank, try to collect my thoughts, an open hole of nothingness and loss. I got no memory.
Steve, thanks so much for coming on. I'm a huge fan. These guys know The Urge is one of my all-time favorite bands, and so much to the fact that we're trying to dial in the year, Juan, but I think it was 2009. I was living in Florida at the time, St. Petersburg. And out of nowhere, out of thin air, Anthony sends me this package in the mail, and it's a cassette, The Urge, Fat Babies in the Mix.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he sent this in the mail to me.
Wow.
I think he dug it
Out
up
of
at
nowhere.
some record
Yeah,
store, and I'm like, dude, this is rad, because I've never owned this, first of all. I'm a huge fan, so this is like an ultimate collectible for me.
That's definitely like less from like 1990 or something.
Super old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And now we're talking with you. So it's like ultimate, nerd full circle. We're big nerds here. So thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
Got it, man. Thanks for having me.
So that's from 1990?
91, something like that, yeah.
Wow. I wonder how many of those are kicking around, right? I mean, there can't be a lot of those cassettes, float all over the place, and then let alone us having one and sending it to another one of us.
Yeah, because, I mean, after that period of time, they usually end up in the trash, or we are, if they even still work, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I think it's a colored cassette. Like the actual plastic is colored, which is
It's
which is
green.
awesome. Yeah, I mean,
Nice.
Yeah, we made those in like green, red, and yellow, I think.
who was doing that back then? There couldn't have been too many bands doing that.
It's like a vinyl variant. Yeah. So it was actually recorded on January 22nd, 1993 in St. Louis, which is where you're from, St. Louis.
93, okay.
Recorded at Mississippi Nights. I take it that's a small, like a venue, a club.
Yeah, that's a club, yeah.
Awesome.
Man, so that's way back. So Steve, take us back. So The Urge, you guys start right out of high school, or maybe even in high school, right? Late 80s?
I was still in high school. So the other guys had just graduated, and I was still in high school. I was like a junior. And I knew them. They were a little older than I was, and I was really into, being in a band, and I really liked what they were doing. And I got one of the drummer. I knew his younger sister, and she knew that I was a singer. And she's like, "You should go audition for my brother's band."
Nice.
So they were looking for a singer because they were just playing instrumentals in his basement. So I joined the band, and that year, my junior year in high school, we started playing a few parties, house parties, VFW halls. And then it kind of progressed into us playing bars around the area.
Were you singing before you joined the band? Did you already know that, you had the pipes, the golden pipes?
Yeah, I was already singing like like school choir and church and stuff like that. So I was already singing, not in a band, but yeah, I was definitely singing.
Nice. Were you writing music too, or?
I was not. I didn't learn how to write music like until I joined the band. Even really till later than that. When one of the drummer was already kind of writing the song, so it took me a minute before I started actually writing.
Nice.
You know what's cool about that is the fact that like it makes it cool to take choir or like learn how to music theory in high school, because I mean the Urge is like a hybrid of like hardcore punk, heavy metal, ska, reggae, funk, rock. Like learning how to sing in high school is really just the foundation of what you really want to do, which is pretty rad.
I think you're exactly right. It's a great foundation. In fact, I use it still to this day with all my other music stuff. So yeah, it's a fantastic foundation.
Did the guys in the band know you could sing? Like, because in my head, I have this vision of you showing up to practice. They have no idea if you can sing. And then you open your mouth and they're like, holy shit, this is the guy.
Yeah, I don't think they really knew. I knew some of them from the neighborhood, but I don't think they knew that I was actually singing. Just Jeff's younger sister did. And so I think she probably just gave him a heads up. And then, when we got into practice, like, oh, this is like legit. Okay, cool. So
that's crazy. I mean, did you know personally, like, I think I have a pretty good voice. I think I can give this a shot. Or were you like, I don't think I have a good voice, but I'm going to try it anyway,
No, I mean, I knew it. I always sang at home and I always sang with my mom. So I always knew that I was capable of singing. I joined the choir, maybe it was my freshman year. But before that, the choir director came to our junior high school and told me that I should join the choir. So,
oh, cool.
I'm like looking for kids that might join the next year. And so it's like, you should definitely join the choir. So I did, and I had a ball. I had a great time. So no doubt.
Nice. So, and as Nate said, I mean, you guys were a mix of a lot of different sounds. What goes into your influence? What were you listening to at that age that kind of helped, mold you as a musician?
Man, there was a lot of cool stuff coming out. So we had, Bad Brains was by that time was on their like fourth album, you know what I mean? And so I was like big into Bad Brains. The Clash was a big one for me. The Police were huge influence on me. So, I mean, if you can just take those three right there, and then that would give you kind of an idea of where we were coming from. And then Fishbone came along in like 86 or 87. And that really tied a lot of things together for me. You had like that stage energy from like Parliament Funkadelic, and then you had the punk rock, and then you had reggae. So, I mean, that was a band that was huge influence because they were putting a lot of styles together. So, yeah, imagine all that, together. And that was at that time, I was 17, so I was really impressionable. So I'm like, this is like the best shit ever,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But it's not only you, it's also the band, like the other band members are also digging the same styles of music. So you guys are kind of all meeting in the middle.
Yeah, we were all on the same kind of wavelength on what we were into, anything that was like counterculture we were into, So punk rock was like huge, and hardcore and metal and reggae. No one was listening to reggae except for like a handful of us, in the area. So bands like The Clash, you were starting to mix all that stuff. You know what I mean? That was like super dope.
It just works. I mean, you wouldn't think it would work just by like all the genres Nate just described, but it does.
Yeah,
and
it does.
And it's a testament to you guys. I mean, short of, a few gaps in the resume, it's largely the same group of guys for you guys since the early 90s.
Yep.
And that's rare. That's really rare.
It's really rare. So like on that Fat Babies cassette, what you're hearing is the original band. What most people know is what we formed very shortly after that. Literally almost like 6 months after that came out, we got a new drummer and a new guitar player. And that's what people know. And we put our first major record out with those cats, and everybody's still the same.
That's wild.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had earlier this summer, we had Peanut from 311 on, and I know you've toured with them extensively and know those guys pretty well.
Yeah.
It was wild to hear him talk about 30 years of 311. I mean, you guys are in a similar boat, 30 years being friends, playing music together. How do you keep that up for so long?
Well, the music part is really easy. Playing the music is That's what we know how to do. Is what we love to do. So that's real easy. We get together to play music. Man, that's like the greatest thing of all time. That's a piece of cake.
Yeah.
Really, the only stressful part, I think, for me, maybe even for the rest of the guys, was when we were juggling making music and, you know, the industry and this, you know, selling records and how we present the music and how we go about that. That part of it was stressful. You know, it takes, you know, the writing the music and the, you know, playing the music. That's the fun part. That's the meat. That's what we do. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we love it. You know, we just had rehearsal the other night. We got a couple shows we're going to do before the end of the year. And we get together and we talk about, you know, road stories, and we just have a great time. So
crazy. You know, what's interesting hearing you talk about that is the fact that you guys are, to us as fans, and Peanut actually mentioned this from 311. He's like, I want to be a musician's musician. So when we listen to these records, especially in headphones to kind of get all the detail, it's like, these guys are like musicians. Like everyone's super dialed. Everyone's very tight, down to the drum fills and everything. I'm like, everyone's playing it, you know, hyper focus. So it's not just like, you say it's the easy part, but
that was, and it started that way though. For us, our favorite bands coming out of that like funk era too, were super, super, super tight. Yeah. Like there's nothing like seeing a rock band that's just tight. You know what I mean? That's crazy. So that was our thing, is like, we got to be tight. And so our whole mindset is that when we go into playing, you know what I mean? So it's not, never do we ever feel like we should, you know, just be loose. You know what I mean? It's loose in one kind of way, but it's tight. You know what I mean? It's high energy, but it's tight. So, I mean, if you're a musician, yeah, you'd probably be like, damn. But yeah. That's our point. That's our whole point. Yeah.
And we aren't, but we've talked to a few of them now over the course of almost 2 years. And,
exactly.
And to hear it from a few different people, be like, oh yeah, those guys, they know what they're doing. Like that's kind of fun.
It's almost like it's trained our ear to look for like really like more detail, like not just casual listening. Like we've gotten so much insight from different guests that's like, okay, and now I'm listening to this record in a full, like a completely different headspace, you know?
The detail you learn is where, and it's subconscious to the listener sometimes until you dig deep and go, oh man, there's all kinds of shit going on here. But the details is totally where it's at, especially with records, you know?
Well, that's the thing, is you can fake it on a record. You can't fake it live. And this is like a backtrack, you know?
That's true.
Yeah.
That's very true.
And I know we saw you back in 2000 in Portland. So we lived it, you know? It's been many years. I think we were.
With us today?
It was Goldfinger and Mest.
That was a good trip. Yeah, it was a fun trip.
Yeah, I don't think my voice had changed yet. I was so young, but.
Oh man, the best kids were like literally kids. I think they're like 16 and 17. They're super young. Yeah.
So, you guys are formed. You're playing locally. What is it like early on playing locally? You know, getting your name out there, finding different people. You said you played some bars and some house parties, but when did you start to like feel the momentum?
The place Mississippi Nights, where we recorded that live cassette, is it held about 1,000 people. Wow. So everybody came and played there. So I mean, literally, like Nirvana played there, you know, on their Nevermind tour before it blew up. I mean, that kind of gives you an idea. It's that in between venue. So our manager at the time was the talent buyer there, so he would put us on as the opening band for a lot of stuff that came through. So which was great, because then we started meeting other bands and, you know, just, you know, meeting those guys and then actually getting out on tours with them from that point. So it took us a while before we got to the point where record labels were even paying attention to us, but we started touring a lot. We bought a van and started playing as much as we could outside of our town, because we just realized if we're playing at home all the time, it's not going to do anything for us. You know what I mean? So we got in the van and just went everywhere we could.
Crazy. And at that time, pretty early on, obviously, 1989, like you guys signed to an indie label, Neat Guy Records, or Neat Guy. I don't know what the
that was our own imprint. We created our own imprint. We got a little investment money from the producer to basically just to press the CD and make T-shirts. But we made our own imprint, our own label, so we, you know, legally we'd have, you know, control over all that stuff, whatever. So Neat Guy is the name of our is the name of the Urge imprint, and we still use it to this day. Also the name of our publishing company.
That's awesome. That's you're ahead of the game in that front.
Yeah, it was a couple of smart cats in the band, no doubt.
Yeah, because we weren't sure if you were shopping yourselves at that point. Obviously, the major stuff comes later on, but we're always curious of that, like just what the interest was back then.
We wanted to be on a label, but we just couldn't get anybody from the industry side of it to take us serious, even though we were from throughout our Midwest region, we're doing anywhere from 500 to 1,500,
Wow.
Ticket sales at these venues, but it doesn't matter to record people. So, and especially seeing that we're from the Midwest, and back then, record companies pretty much only had executives in New York and Los Angeles. So if you weren't kind of like doing, showcasing in LA all the time or in New York, or if you had a lawyer or somebody like pumping your stuff, it was hard to get visible. So our route was, we learned that Dave Matthews was doing this, where we were doing the same circuit. It was like all of us doing the same little Southeast circuit. It was Matthews, The Urge, 311, Hootie the Blowfish. It was just a ton of bands doing that. And they all kind of had this indie, like we'll do it ourselves kind of attitude.
Yeah.
And Dave Matthews was, his story's even crazier. He's like, we're selling hundreds of thousands of CDs at the shows, and the record labels have no clue. So
Wow.
what they did was they stopped selling them at the shows and did deals with the stores and did them retail only. So that way the sales could be tracked.
Right.
So
yeah.
in a very short period of time, everybody knew like this band is selling shitloads of records, right? So we did the same thing. We were, those first independent records were, we'd sell 20,000 copies, 30,000 copies. So we said, well, we can't sell them out of the car anymore because no one knows we're here. So we did a deal with Blockbuster Music in the region and Best Buy.
Wow.
And in a very short period of time, the record labels they're like, oh shit, okay. It's the Urge band selling all these records.
Yeah.
So that kind of got the things rolling. And then from that point, we got into like a little thing where there was like 5 or 6 labels, and we chose Immortal because it was a small imprint, and Korn was the only other band on it at the time.
Oh, wow.
So it was a small imprint, but they had the backing of Sony, and the deal we got was sweet, and they just had all this energy for us that totally were behind us. And there was some other larger labels that just felt like we would just get the advance and we would disappear. So I think it was a smart decision going with Immortal. And they picked up Incubus shortly afterwards.
That's
Wow.
quite the early lineup for Immortal. The three of you
Yeah.
guys.
Urge, Korn, and Incubus. Yeah.
That'd be a hell of a show.
That would be a hell of a show.
There's a European tour. Our first European trip was Korn, Urge, Incubus. Yeah.
Amazing.
Man.
Wow. You just brought up a few things that really kind of set the stage for the time, because for you to prove to the label that, you guys were viable to be signed, it was really bringing it from independent to having some kind of measure of, your actual sales metrics, which is the only way to get signed other than, clearly even the guy being at the show wasn't enough for the A&R.
Yeah. We just didn't have the problem with labels sometimes is when something takes off and gets really big, they simply just want to repeat it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So that's convenient and that's easy. So something that's not like that doesn't immediately get seen. And that was back then. It was, things are different now, I think, because, with all the formats we have and, the way we can get music out, you can find ways. But then it was really, it's like somebody had to get on a plane and go see the band,
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was unpacking when you were kind of describing it. It's not only that, but going back to like the kind of multiple hybrid genres, it's like in the 90s, it was very genre driven. So if like you're like rock, you're metal, you're this, you can't be everything and be signed because you can't, it's hard for the label to promote you. So like they're probably looking at you like, this is going to be too complicated. Oh, we're all set.
A lot of labels were like that. And then they just started looking at sales and go, okay, well, this is something we can work with. And even then, some of them were like, well, we don't know what to do with it. obviously we have fans and, and sales, but we don't really know how to market this. And so it's kind of a cool thing, but kind of a curse at the same time.
So signing with Immortal, was that like a goal of you guys for the band to sign to a major? Like, what was that an early goal, or did you have other goals like when you started?
Yeah, that was for me, the two big things was to get on tour. I always wanted to be on tour, get out there and play in other cities. And then the other was to get a record deal. Yeah. And so that was like, it's really hard, especially in the 90s. It was hard to do anything without distribution, without some kind of distribution or a label deal. So making records was extremely expensive, so it cost you $300,000 to make a record,
Wow.
Back then, you can make that now for probably like $15,000, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yep. Technology has definitely made that easier for a lot of people.
Yeah, correct.
So you sign, obviously now you get some exposure. You're being put on different tours. What changed for you guys personally? You guys go from, all right, we were in the van, we were, calling up that little indie outfit, Best Buy, to distribute our stuff. What are we doing now? What's going on for you guys at that point?
At that point, the label, we put out our first record, which was Receiving the Gift of Flavor. We released it independently, sold it through retail, and then Immortal, Sony picked it up. They just bought it and just re-released it.
Wow.
So we just went back on tour. So we stayed on the road for about a year and a half when that record came out. Came back, and then the label was like, okay, on the serious note, we need a single. We need something we could promote. So we went in the studio with Garth Richardson. Yep. Who did the first Rage Against the Machine record. And he was great. He put together a great sound for us. And we had a few songs that we felt like were singles. Jump Right In was definitely one of them. It was really close. We got Nick to come on board and sing the chorus. And then we put that mix together. It was like, okay, I think we got something. And the label threw that out there, and it did really well. And it tracked really nicely. So at that point, now we're not just, doing the tours, but we're on all the major festivals, spring and summer festivals.
Nice.
So so then you're just kind of like, you're really going, you don't come off the road. But it was really cool because MTV was legitimate at the time. And so, all the deals were going, into rotation. So that was just sweet. It was really cool.
So Steve, I got to know, what's the history behind the cover of Receiving the Gift of Flavor with the baby? It's so unique.
It is unique, and there is no real history. It's just we hired a guy to come up with like a concept for the cover, and it's really interesting. He used Photoshop when you still had floppy disks.
Oh.
Wow.
So the process of making that was really, you had to actually do the multiple layers of color separation for all that for the print, whatever. But it was really cool how they were able to take the baby in the light and burn it, and all that kind of stuff. Right. And he brought it to us. I'm like, dude, that's dope. I have no clue what that means, but it's dope.
Yeah.
I love it.
I love it. That's amazing.
So you mentioned working with Garth. That's probably the first time you'd worked with somebody that had put out something, say, like Rage Against the Machine's self-titled record. How did that change for you guys as far as putting music together and making your record there, being with somebody with a reputation like that?
We were excited because that first Rage record was unbelievable and it still holds up to this day.
Yep.
So we were super excited to work with Garth, and he was really excited about working with us. He had come out to watch us a few times and like, yeah, you guys are tight and it's going to be a lot of fun working with you. So when you go from, making Receiving the Gift of Flavor, we were on a really tight budget. We made that record for like $14,000. We had to do it in like a week.
Wow.
Yeah. So working on a full budget record, the process is way different. I mean, it just takes longer. It's about really like, building this massive texture, this massive sound. So it was different, for us. We were used to working kind of on the fly, and this was a longer process, so. But Garth was great, fantastic engineer, good producer, and the team he had working with us had worked on just everything, So the sounds we got out of the studio were super dope. And he took it one step further. He was like, "Well, I'm gonna get the band out of St. Louis, so we're gonna work at this little mansion in Reno."
Wow.
There's a studio in Reno where like they did the White Snake records and Milli Vanilli stuff. And it's a small mansion. It's got like 10 bedrooms in it.
Oh, wow.
And got a massive SSL and live room, whatever. So we lived in it for about 9 weeks. And that was actually fun, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like it's like rock and roll boot camp, right? You get to go hang out at the summer camp. I mean, you get to go hang out with your friends, make music, live in this estate. Like that's pretty dope.
Yeah, it was really cool, man.
Yeah, I was going to ask you too, like when there's that much pressure, like inspiration comes from the moment. It's like the moment. So he was basically putting you in a moment to maybe draw inspiration, because otherwise you're in your hometown. Like, you know, I don't know if you had the songs pre-written or were you writing in real time?
We were not writing in real time. We did a lot of pre-production for this record. So we knew that it was going to be very important, you know, and considering we're spending a lot of money and, you know, had to try to come in on budget, you know, we knew we had to do a lot of pre-production. So we spent about 6 months, you know, writing stuff and recording the demos. So we actually leased a house in a little lake community outside of St. Louis and spent about 4 weeks just really writing, really getting details down, like all that kind of nitty gritty kind of stuff. So by the time we got in the studio with Garth, we had demos done. We were ready to actually record. So, you know, stuff like with the vocals, you know, some of the lyrics weren't finished yet. Yeah. So while they were tracking, I was still writing lyrics, coming up with a few vocal lines. I think really like the only thing we didn't have like just solid was Jump Right In. We knew that, you know, we had written like 5 choruses for it and we didn't like any of them. So we knew we had to get something for Jump Right In. We were liking the way it was going. We had the verse, we had all that. And then I reached out to Nick and say, I got this song. You got any ideas for a chorus? And he's like, yeah. And he was in 311 was in Sacramento. So, which is like an hour and a half from where we were recording. So we drove out and picked him up. We flew out and picked him up. He came back to the studio, dropped his idea, which was great. And then we flew him back to Reno or back to Sacramento, and then we dropped it. So yeah, we did a lot of pre-production on it. And, you know, to this day, when we record pre-production, we know it's like very important.
Yeah. Master Styles could be my favorite Urge song in Closer. And I've been listening to that song for 20 years. I didn't pick this up until like this week. It sounds like there's a didgeridoo at the end of that song. Is there? Can you confirm?
Yes. So we brought in a good friend of ours, Mike Dillon. Mike Dillon plays in like a million bands. I think he's out on the road with like Les Claypool now.
Damn.
But he's like one of the greatest percussionists there is. So we brought Mike Dillon in to lay percussion on a lot of stuff. So when he brought everything. He brought a truckload of stuff. So didgeridoo is one of them. He brought like goat's hooves and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Wow.
But the Closer track there's 48 tracks of stuff.
Wow.
But you can't hear until the end of the song. You know, like that didgeridoo's in there, but you can't hear it until the end of the song.
Do people know that? Like, do people pick up on the didgeridoo? Because it took 20 years for me to pick it up.
Not everyone does, but I had a couple friends of mine go, is there a didgeridoo in there? I'm like, but yeah, it does. You don't hear it until the very end of the song.
Yep.
I mean, it missed all 3 of us until this week. And Anthony texted us earlier today. He goes, we got to ask. I got to know. I just heard it today. I need to know what this is.
Yeah, Garth was like, he was really fond of layering. So we just brought in a lot of stuff. Massive layering of guitars. I mean, we have pictures of Jerry standing in front of like 15 different guitar amps. And they're all running simultaneously, and so he picks and chooses like from each one. So he's big on layering and texture and all that.
And like that type of thing just naturally wouldn't have happened in the Neat Guy days. Just, you know, you weren't in a house, a mansion. You weren't.
Yeah, we wouldn't have had the budget for that. Yeah.
I got to ask about the album title, Master Styles. It's perfect for your band, first of all. Secondly,
right.
It's just a great name for a record. I mean, it's always Receiving the Gift of Flavor, but this one it fits everything. Just listen to the record from front to back and you're like, yeah, that makes sense. How did you come up with Master Styles?
I don't know. I think we're backstage at one of our shows, and because I love martial arts films, and so we were like, you know, my style is better than yours, you know. And so I think we're kind of mimicking like like bad Chinese lip syncing, over movies. And so like, yeah, I'm the master of styles. I think that's kind of where that came from.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
wow.
I think somebody was like, man, that should be the name of the record. I think it's stuck.
These like nerd backstories, like we've been thinking about these questions for like 20 plus years. It's insane.
Now, Receiving Flavor, that's a very interesting one. We had the record almost in the can. We're almost done with it. We're down in Atlanta, and we're about to play their huge music fest, like the Urge and Helmet. And I think 311 was on it. And it was just this killer lineup. And the day before, we're there, and like the Urge has a new album came out, and we don't have a name for it. So we let the listeners in Atlanta name the record.
Oh wow,
Wow.
that's cool.
No doubt.
Did somebody like come with it immediately, or did they have to like think about it? And
I think we had a list of like 10 or 15 that had come across us. Seemed like we were just kind of futzing around with it, and then we let the listeners. And it was
that's cool.
Georgia Tech. They're like their radio station, the college station, and we let the listeners come up, like choose a name. Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
Man, you guys are ahead of it in so many levels. Like the fan participation's like that's like a new thing.
Yeah.
Like choose the set list with Metallica. Like choose, like damn.
The hustle is the hustle's not much different. It's just the medium is different.
Totally.
That's true.
Crazy.
So you mentioned 311, you mentioned Helmet. And to be honest with you, somewhere in the middle is the Urge sound-wise. Like if you had a Venn diagram, not only of like 90s music, but music in general, I think the Urge would be in the middle. And
that's not too far.
And to pull off those tours, like in that mix, you have to be unique, which a lot of bands are, but you also have to be good, which a lot of bands aren't. So for you to pull both of those off is like insane. It just doesn't make sense. Like there's no band that should be touring with Korn and Mest,
Those Korn tours, because they were label mates, we just toured a lot with them. Their crowd was brutal. So if we didn't come out, I mean, we'd come on stage and immediately it'd start flicking us off and stuff.
Oh, wow.
And then, man, we just come out like just hard. And then like, within 10, 15 minutes, we're like, oh shit,
Yep.
But like, and trust me, that we got off on that. We loved that. Like kind of, giving them the finger back and say, check this out. But yeah, for us, it was nice to be able to do all that, you know what I mean? Because then, towards the middle of the set, we could bust up into something that was more chill, had a reggae ska feel to it, and they're going to be into it, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like break that wall down. There's no reason why you can't be into some other shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It just really defines the time because 90s were so like genre, even from like we were talking about earlier with the label, like, no, you're either this or this.
Yeah.
It was like that with the fan too, but I think it was like forced. Like you felt like, oh, the label thinks it has to be one or the other. So I guess that's the way I'm going to be. But now we're 2021, it's free for all.
Yeah.
So
culturally, kids were put in, in these little categories, and it was totally this corporate feel when it came to music. It's like, well, what are we, how are we going to market to this, this group of kids? You know what I mean? Like, so kids were definitely played out on that. Not everyone was. There was some kids out there who didn't give a fuck and went out and saw bands like us and 311 and stuff like that. But the labels really were just looking for ways to promote and sell product.
It was just getting in front of eyeballs. It probably didn't even matter who, right?
Yeah. For us, is we just give us an audience and we'll go out there and try to knock them out.
I love that. Speaking of which, you mentioned it earlier, but you said you did some touring overseas as well.
Yeah, we did a couple European tours, one with Korn and Incubus, and then we went back over shortly after with Incubus, and then another band that was on the label that just signed on the label. I can't remember the name. Yeah, so we did both of our European trips. We did with Korn, with Incubus. So yeah, a couple trips.
Wow, 1998.
Something like that.
Wow. So off of Science, that's crazy. That's such a interesting phase for that band and for you guys to be touring with them, and just you guys both had so many different styles of music on the records that you're promoting. So that's very almost like a perfect fit, to be honest.
Yep, and to us, the Incubus guys were really young. I mean, and they were extremely talented at that young age. I mean, and I think all of us could see something was going to pop off with that group like easily. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. what were the big differences between, playing over here and playing abroad with, say Korn, or even just going back over with Incubus? It had to be, were you received differently over there, or were you people into it just as much as they were here?
I'd say in some places it was rough because it was Korn. And at the time, Korn was as big as Metallica in Europe. You know what I mean? They were huge. So going over there, you're playing in front of 5,000 Korn fans.
Wow. Yeah.
That's a rough crowd. Trust me, we got them. But I mean, it's like playing over in the United States, we'd already built a following, here. So if we were playing with a band like Korn or somebody who had more, bigger than us, we still had a core following at our shows, but we were going in fresh, opening for, metal band. So it was definitely rough, but we got them. And once we got them, dude, then it was crazy.
I love that mentality. You're like, all right, we know we're going to go into this and we're going to have to turn these people. We're going to have to make them ours. And then you relish it. I can hear it still, even right now. You relish that challenge and, deliver on it. And that's fucking awesome.
No doubt.
Yeah. And that's not an easy task. And to be honest with you, in 2021, that mix probably wouldn't happen. I think people are open-minded, but in a lot of ways they're also stuck in their ways. And to have a band like yourself open for a metal band, a true metal band, just probably wouldn't happen. So it's a testament to you guys. That's my point.
Yeah, and looking at like tours I'm seeing, like just kind of at a glance, it seems there's a little bit less of a mix-up of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, seeing is like, man, you also have like Live Nation does a lot of packaging for tours. So it's not just the record labels anymore. It's the promoters. Like they're looking at how can we package these tours and sell the most tickets. So they're definitely going to try to put bands that are similar together.
Yeah,
true. But on the contrary, though, we were talking about this a few weeks ago. You guys also played Knotfest, which is Slipknot.
Yeah.
What was that? I don't know, a few years ago or so. So that's still happening to this day, but maybe that's it, like an inside thing.
The only reason why we were on that is because we're super good friends with Slipknot. They used to actually open for Urge when they got started.
That's awesome.
Wow.
When Paul died, and then the band was like, Paul really wanted you guys to play Knotfest. You know what I mean? So we're like, well, we're not a metal band. But they're like, if you guys want to do it, you can. And we did it. And I wore all white because I think out of 20,000 people, I was the only person wearing white clothing. So it was another one of those things where it took a minute. Like, why is this band out here today? Because like Death Clock was playing that day. I mean,
oh yeah,
yeah.
It was like, trust me, I was loving all of it.
Yeah,
it's totally different, But eventually we got everybody into it. It was a lot of fun. It was cool.
Who'd you go on after, or who were you between? Do you remember?
We were late in the afternoon, so we went on like right after Surge, I think. So Surge from System of a Down had his band out there that year.
Nice. Yep. Man, that's I wish I could have been there for that.
It was great. It was two big old stages, and that just music was like kept going. They had some old cats. I don't know if you guys remember a band called Prong.
Yeah, by name, the name. Yep.
Yeah, Prong was like the old school, like precursor to like bands like Helmet and stuff.
Yeah, very
Prong.
Helmet-ish. Yep.
But yeah, some really cool shit on the gig. Yeah.
That's so cool. So between Slipknot and 311, there's just a lot of relationships that were built starting like in the startup to still kind of bring it back full circle, even these recent tours.
You got St. Louis, you got Des Moines, you got Omaha, you got Kansas City. You got this Midwest circle basically of college towns. And from St. Louis to Boulder, Colorado, you got a million places for bands like us to play. And so we just stuck in that realm. And that's why we ended up with 311 so much, is because while they were transitioning to Los Angeles, they were still playing through the Midwest region a lot. So it just made sense. Like, well, we're, playing the same circuit. So we jumped on a lot of stuff together.
Wow. Yeah, that makes sense. And after all that touring, all that, all the legacy, Too Much Stereo drops. Another one of my favorite albums. This is the tour we saw you on at the Asylum. Yeah, with Goldfinger and Mest. And it was the last album for quite a while. Like, we didn't know what was going on. We didn't know the insights. That's why we have you on, actually. To know, man, this album drops. I've never been a bigger fan. And it seems like things kind of came to a close. That's basically when you guys broke up, right? In 2001.
Yep. So we put the record out. It's definitely, in my opinion, the best record we made.
Totally.
A lot went into it. We hired a guy named Cliff Magnus to produce it. And Cliff comes from the pop side of things, like really pop side of things. So bop and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, wow.
Lance comes from that realm. But we felt like we needed somebody to help us with putting together the songs, the arrangements and things like that. So we had done our pre-production. So like, okay, we got a ton of material. We just need somebody to polish it. And so he did a great job of just helping us, like, you know, put the little touches on the songwriting, you know what I mean? Like, so it just sounded like, man, these songs actually sound like they're finished.
Yeah.
It's cool.
In my mind, a lot of songs that we wrote weren't finished in my mind, but and a couple of these songs on the Too Much Stereo record, like that sounds like, okay, I'm cool with that, you know? But that's Cliff, and we put the record out. It was weird. We switched from Immortal Sony to Immortal Virgin.
Yep.
So Immortal Records was going through, I think they were losing their distribution deal with Sony, and then he just signed a new one with Virgin. So with that, we had a choice. We had a choice to just stay with Epic Records proper, which is under Sony. That was in our contract. And so Korn and Incubus both had that choice as well. Or we could go to Virgin. And we chose to go with the Virgin Records. You know, there was so much energy. They rolled out the carpet for us. And, you know, it's still a major label. So we chose to go with Virgin. Shortly after, it was kind of a minor collapse in the music industry. It was like, It was like retail was pretty much, while we were on the road, retail was like dying, you know, all the way around. So it was just kind of a weird vibe. The machine at Virgin wasn't as, you know, efficient as it was at Sony. And so we were just kind of getting kind of a bad, you know, vibe while we were out on the road. It didn't feel the same, put it that way. So by the time we got off the road, we were just kind of just like tired, let down a little bit. And we still were doing some touring, a little bit playing. But I'm like, man, I don't feel like going back through the process of trying to find another label, especially right now when when the music industry is failing. So we just kind of broke up. And it's probably a little bit more complicated than that, but really we were just tired, you know what I mean? Disillusioned at that point. So we broke it off probably a good 3 or 4 or 5 years. Still kind of, we're hanging out with each other a little bit. I was living in Los Angeles at the time, working on some of my own music. And then John got married, the drummer got married, and we played at his wedding. We all jumped up and played. We're like, we should probably start playing again.
Nice. That's awesome.
Damn,
one of those,
that's amazing.
Cliche 80s movies, you know?
Yeah.
But it's...
You're all looking at each other. It's time. It's time.
Did we just reform?
It was totally cliche, but yeah. So then we, the radio stations regionally were kind of chomping at the bit, and they were kept like, when are you guys going to play again? When are you guys going to play again? So we finally decided to do one of the big festivals in the St. Louis area to kind of kick us off again. And then we kind of started playing again, and we got to do some new music. So we worked on a record called Galvanized. It took us a little while. It was like a bunch of stuff we had semi-finished before, and then we just finally finished it. So we released Galvanized independently, and then we haven't made anything since, but we're working on some stuff right now. So
Nice.
Crazy.
So yeah, when you released Galvanized independently, that was around when you formed your Urge LLC, right? And that's where you brought the Neat Guy stuff over and everything kind of under that one umbrella.
Well, and this way we didn't have distribution and the big budget from the label and stuff, whatever. But we have our own studio, so it doesn't really matter. But the idea was we weren't really trying to go out and hit the road again, to support this record. We just felt like we wanted to get some new music out to our core fans, stuff people that are actually going to go find it and listen to it. So we felt like we had to make some music, and this time there was no label pressure on creating singles and hits and things like that. So we're just like, let's just do shit that we feel is cool, or just whatever happens, you know what I mean? So
you mentioned solo career. Nate, you saw Steve solo, right?
Yeah. Steve, like I said earlier, I was a big fan. I've always been a big fan. So back on July 20th, 2007, me and a few friends took a road trip to go to Bonnaroo in Tennessee. And he lived in Denver and I lived in New York City. So he actually drove from Denver to New York City to pick me up.
Yes.
Legend has it he didn't sleep. He just drove the whole way. Bob, if you're out there, he knows.
Bob's out there.
He's out there. He's definitely listening. Picked me up, and then we went on a road trip. And part of that road trip was Bonnaroo, but the rest was just seeing a bunch of cool, unique shows throughout the U.S. And we picked St. Louis to catch you solo. And I can't remember the name of the bar or venue, but we saw you play a solo set, and it was awesome, man. It was like, for me, it was like full circle. Like, I fucking love the Urge. Now I'm seeing Steve solo.
Was I doing it with me and another guitar player, like an acoustic thing, kind of?
Yep. Yeah, you had a guitar player with you.
Yeah, I still do that show quite a bit. His name's Adam, and he's so good. And so, we do a little bit of everything with that.
That's awesome. That was cool. I mean, I actually met you that day. We chatted for a second. I don't know what we talked about. It was so long ago, but I just remember being like, huge fan. Nice to talk to you. Now we're talking again. So it's, it's really coming full circle now. It's just crazy. And a little context to the whole 2000 thing. I know we're rewinding a little bit, but the reason things were a little choppy in 2000 is because that's when Napster was going. So like record sales were dying, retail was dying.
It was dying so fast. It was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Literally, like,
we're sorry. That was our generation.
Yeah.
We apologize.
Although I bought the album, Steve. Come on. I bought the album.
Yeah.
God, less than a year of putting the record out, half the employees at Virgin Record were laid off.
Jeez.
So the staff was like laid off at Virgin Records. So I mean, it's like you'd walk in the office and like only half the people were there. So it was just weird. You'd walk in there before and you got a bunch of people doing a bunch of stuff, but there was no detail. So, and radio was not proving to be a good way to gauge retail sales. In other words, you used to be able to like get a song on the radio and you'd watch sales go up.
Yeah.
Right.
That was happening, so it was just really weird. Things were changing big time.
Yeah. And the reason I bring it up is because that road trip where I saw you solo, I was living in New York City, I was going to college, but I was also interning at Virgin EMI Records on Fifth Avenue. And that was in 07. In 07, that same meeting was we were having like full on meetings. I was an intern and I was still getting into these like meetings with the whole staff. And they were like, we're losing money hand over fist. What the fuck's going on?
Yeah.
Napster was 2000, but in 07, there was another peak of like pirated music. And Radiohead was on Virgin EMI and they had just exited the label and put out In Rainbows for free.
For free, yeah.
For free. And so it was super controversial. In the meeting, I just like know it in the back of my head, like a movie scene. It was like, everyone's looking around the room like, what the fuck are we going to do? Our biggest band that we've ever signed is basically giving us the finger. And layoffs started happening just like in 2000. It was like clockwork. It was crazy.
Virgin made a series of really gutsy decisions that killed them early. Right around 98, 99, they advanced Mariah Carey for the Glitter record. Picked up Pepper for some crazy amount of money. They picked up Janet Jackson for a crazy amount of money. D'Angelo's. They picked up all of these like marquee artists all at one time for millions and millions of dollars, and none of those records like really kind of popped. And so they were kind of in over their heads at that point, and it's a relatively small label compared to Epic or Columbia or something like that.
So you getting back to the Urge stuff, get back to your music career. You guys dropped Galvanized in 2013, and then for the 20th anniversary of Receiving the Gift of Flavor, you record it live, right?
Yeah.
How did that come about?
We felt like Receiving the Gift of Flavor is what it is. We made it in a week on a small budget. It worked. It's great. We feel like, man, we could have made it sound better. And like, if we had the technology we have now, we could have made it sound better. So we've been playing these songs forever. We don't need to rehearse or anything like that. Let's just re-record it. So it's like, well, we don't need to like overdub all this stuff. Let's just re-record it live. And so we did that. We just did each song 3 times, did 3 takes, and then we had a live audience. So we took an old theater in the town where I grew up at and sold preset amount of tickets for people to watch us record the record live. So that was really cool. So this recording of that, and then what you hear is us killing it live, man. It was, and it sounds good. I'm like, man, wish it could sound good like this, we put it out. But I get it. When I hear it received and get the flavor, completely understand why it works. But yeah, we wanted to upgrade the sound of it.
Nice.
It just like boggles my mind because it just, as the fan, we don't really get it. So you were able to re-record it sans major label because it's a live version of the songs.
Yeah, this is our masters. Yeah, so we didn't need a label. So yeah, so we own the publishing to the music, that side of it. So we can re-record it if we want to. That's why on Spotify you hear a lot of re-recordings of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's because the artist and the label haven't worked out, the release of the masters most likely.
Yep.
So they'll just re-record it.
Okay.
There are some big time names doing that. Taylor Swift just did it, so
Yeah,
she's been doing it all year, right?
Yep.
So Steve, what's next in store for The Urge? I see you have a show at the pageant that you're promoting, and then new album. I think you kind of teased that.
Yeah. So right before the pandemic, we were trying to put the finishing touches on a new record. And then we just, of course, we stopped, being in the same room together for a year and a half. But yeah, we even kind of promised the radio station we'd give them a single. So the idea now is at least finish up on a single, something we can give the radio stations in the region to play, and then finish the record.
Nice. We're looking forward to that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, it's cool. I mean, this many years long, like 35 years in, I think, right? And you're still making new music. That's amazing.
Something like that, yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Wow. That's crazy.
I mean, that's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and some.
I don't know about all that, but
Well, you're in the Audio Slave Hall of Fame, so
Yeah.
we love it.
that's fantastic.
All right, we got a couple quick lightning rounds, guys. We want to jump into those.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Steve, we get questions that really don't fit into the interview that we like to throw at you. They're kind of quick hitters.
Okay.
So I saw you guys at the we saw you at the Asylum with Goldfinger and Mest 2000, and then I saw you solo, obviously, 07. But there's so many tours. We were looking at like websites that kind of showcase the tours that you've been on, and we were just geeking out. Like, man, I would have loved to have been on that, or sorry, been there. What are your personal like favorite tours that you were on?
Some of those first tours that we were doing in that southern region, southeast region with 311, those were a lot of fun because we didn't know what to expect. We were all kind of exploring, so we were just getting our, on a bus for the first time, you know what I mean? Or, we're doing a long van tour. So everything was brand new for us, just being out there. So it was super adventurous and crazy. But that first, we met 311 down in Atlanta on a big festival in Atlanta. And we were like, we should go on tour together. We kind of like mutual handshake kind of thing. And so the first tour we did was down south with them. And that was just, man, we did a lot of drinking. It was a lot of fun, dude.
Nice.
It was a big party.
Nice. What year was that?
Man. Okay. So that would have probably been 93, 94.
Oh, awesome. Nice.
So when that live record you got,
Yep.
it's a very interesting record because things started happening for this band right after that was released.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was kind of the pinnacle of our independent like phase. And then things started happening right after that. So right after we released that, we started just taking our van out and doing some tours. And that first 311 tour with them was very shortly after. So probably 93, 94.
Damn. That's nuts.
John, you got one?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it in pre, and you're wearing the sweatshirt. Tell us about the sausages, man. Steve's sausages.
Oh yeah, Steve's hot dogs. I got my shop over in a little neighborhood called Tower Grove South. I guess I've been there for about 7 years now, and this is my second restaurant. I had another one in another neighborhood in St. Louis. So shortly after I moved back to St. Louis from Los Angeles, I started playing a lot. I put together the duo that you saw. I moved back in 06, and my wife was pregnant at the time, so I just got busy playing regionally, playing locally, just playing a lot. And so at one point I was doing like maybe a couple hundred shows per year.
Wow.
Wow.
It's a lot.
Damn.
So I'm like, I'm going to look for some other kind of small business that I can run during the day and maybe kick back on playing as much. And so I got in the food game and opened a little small shop, and took off, did really well. Opened a second location, did really well, and then kind of ran with both until we started cannibalizing each other. Closed one and then consolidated. So we just moved into a larger location, like literally
Nice.
3 months. Yeah.
Nice.
I got to get down there and I got to get down there and try it.
Yeah, and it's cool because it's the whole business was built on, music being a part of it. So there's always performances in the place, you know what I mean? So I always have live bands in there, DJs. Sometimes we play in there, so there's always some music happening there. Yeah.
I texted a buddy of mine last week when we had confirmed that we were going to talk to you, and I was like, hey, this is happening, whatever. He sends me a picture wearing a Steve's Hot Dogs t-shirt. So, and he lives in Tampa or Clearwater, Florida. So I'm like, that's awesome. I'll tell Steve.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
So, Steve, we're legit. We're not just hitting you up out of nowhere. This is a long time coming.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Andrew, if you're listening, thank you for introducing me to the Urge 22 years ago. And yeah, Steve, thank you for talking to us tonight.
Great. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve. Long time coming. Good to see you again. Awesome interview.
Got it.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right, there you have it, folks. Steve Ewing of the Urge solo career. Steve Hot Dogs and Sausages. And we didn't talk about it, but he's also a bodybuilder. I mean, the guy is just probably a man without a minute. And the fact that he carved out some time with us is amazing. And I know we kind of hinted at this in the episode and talked about it, but I genuinely think that dude has one of the best voices going. And not just in the genre, in adjacent. Like there's just something so distinct that if he wasn't in the Urge, he obviously would have been in another big band. And to have him come on, I'm trying to think. I've probably been a fan since 99, 2000, that time frame. So to have this happen was full circle, nerdified and certified moment.
Absolutely. I mean, it was wild to hear some of the stuff that he had to say about, like bands naming album or fans naming albums and how, they came up with Master of Styles, just kind of riffing off of it in the backstage before a show. I love that shit, man. That's the reason we do this, to find out those stories that, I mean, I don't know that's probably somewhere, but I've never heard it before. And to hear it right from Steve himself and to talk about it with you guys, as Nate says, best night of the week. This is always it. And we really do enjoy finding out those little tidbits that, you don't always get from reading the liner notes of a CD, even though there's some cool stuff in there too.
Totally. And actually brings me back to that solo show in 2007 where I think I had a lot of these questions kind of in my head, but I didn't have the platform to really ask him directly or really, feel like I could take his time. Like I think it was post show 2007 solo show. It was like, hey, big fan. Awesome. He was super nice then too. But I couldn't like take an hour of his time and just start rattling off like all this nerd stuff, So surreal between that show and the 2000 show for the Urge that we were at. It's just unbelievable. But I mean, we obviously make it happen, but for someone to even say yes and to really not really hold back on the answers at all and really give us deep story on stuff that I really honestly think he hasn't talked about a lot of these topics anywhere ever. Maybe I'm just getting ahead of myself, but I definitely did some research and put these questions, or we put these questions together based on the fact that we don't know because we can't find the information. So yeah, just so
we
cool.
do our homework, right? I mean, we're not just hey, you put this out and then this happened. No, we want to know, like, how did this happen? Like, why did this happen? Who were you in the room with? All that fun stuff, and that's how you get some of the answers that we have gotten over the course of our 89 episodes. And yeah, occasionally it's not always the cleanest sounding, but man, this one was perfect. Like Steve gave us everything we wanted and more.
Yeah, the backstory on like the album covers and the names, well, especially Master Styles, like that's a great question, an even better answer. It's one of those things that just it formed out of really an inside joke with the band. I don't know if he's talked about that. I mean, like you said, if he did, it's maybe in passing and probably wasn't even recorded. So that's where we come in, and we say this all the time. Never thought a conversation like that would happen. Certainly back in the day when we were kids, jumping right in, no pun intended.
No, back then we didn't.
To listening
today,
to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The answer is yes. We can do this. We can talk to all you people.
Oh,
so
100%.
anybody that's listening out there, we got questions.
Yeah. And it feels like we've kind of been in training our whole lives for these conversations. And Hey, now we have the answers, and now you, the listeners, have the answers.
Yeah, we paid it forward. Man, yeah, it's just incredible. Incredible stories, everything about it, down to like the pre-production stories. Like, you know, these albums are so solid because there was a lot of work, a lot of detail under deadlines. You know, we've talked to a few people on here on putting albums together. Like, yeah, there's the creative process, and yeah, you're a band and the whole rock star thing's great, but it's still a job. Like, you still have to make deadline. In a lot of cases, you actually have to pay fines if you don't make the deadline, which is an obscure fact in the music industry, that you actually pay out of pocket as an artist if you don't make those benchmarks. So phenomenal. So happy they're still going. As Steve said, that they're going to be dropping a new album that they're recording here shortly. So we got a little insight there too. So we'll be looking forward to that. But until then, thanks everyone for listening. And thanks, Steve, for coming on. And we will catch you guys next time. Cheers.
Peace, podheads.
See you next week.